Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Newsround. It is Monday, the 28th of July. Only a few days left of this month, only a few weeks until the season starts. But for Liverpool and everything around Liverpool, it shows absolutely no signs whatsoever, does it, of slowing down? And it does feel with this week, if you're honest, it's set to be a big one. Feels like it could be pivotal in terms of players potentially coming in, players potentially leaving. But I just get the feeling it's going to be one of those ones that it's not conclusive. It still drags a little bit. And you know which one I'm talking about, the saga of the summer so far, which we will talk about, as we will talk about all things Reds this morning. I'm your host, Dave Davis, coming to you from... It's that horrible, like it's cast over, but it's muggy in Edinburgh at the moment. It's like you get the heat, but without the actual sun, which is the whole point of it. But fingers crossed, wherever in the world you are, it is good for you. So let's get into it then. What are the big sort of headlines? What are the big stories around the Reds at the moment? To be honest, one thing that's definite, we now know, so we might as well start there in all honesty, is we are set to lose one banger. You, from next season, by the odds of it, people, will not be able to chant about Chiesa. You won't be able to chant one of their bangers. That is a sad bit. People are mixed on this one, though, aren't they? The Luis Diaz departure. We knew it was coming. The buying bid took about 5 years to get here by snail mail, but it's finally arrived. And the agreement's there, as many tweeted, but we've got the David Ornstein one up on screen there. As it says, Bayern Munich reached total agreement with Liverpool to sign Luis Diaz. A deal for the 28-year-old winger is 75 million euros, and permission is granted to travel for the medical. It's a proposed 4 + 1 year contract he'll get at Bayern with the wage increase he, of course, wants. And I love that little line at the end. It's now 190 million sales since Richard Hughes became Liverpool sporting director. And for all the other incandescent rage and all the other bits from opposition fans, it is funny like how much we've actually made through sales going back since Richard Hughes came to last window with the Carvalho, Van der Berg sales, all that type of thing, Kelleher as well. You know, it all adds up. Quite interesting, but that'll be lost on deaf ears or just completely forgotten as a factual element, won't it? But Luis Diaz, an interesting part of David Ornstein here's article and Paul Joyce's article as well is they made 2 offers, didn't they? At certain points, it's important to say, to Luis Diaz. They did at one time try and do a renewal, but as a few reported, even all the way back to last season, he told Liverpool he was looking to move on. Again, something that we'd spoken about on the transfer show. Now, the fee's an interesting one. 75 million euros, which if you take that to Tesco, I think gets you about, is it 65.5 million seems to be the exchange rate on that. Some people are looking at that and going, brilliant fee for someone who's at times inconsistent, you know, goes periods without goals or assists. And to be fair, I can understand that argument because we saw it this season. He started with an absolute bang, didn't he? He was amazing. Remember that double at Old Trafford? And then there was a bit of a trough in the middle where there was a long period without goals and assists. And then again, towards the end of the season, came up trumps, which with that wave or a graph, whatever you want to call it, as a few referred to on the other side of the argument, it was the first season he showed, not that he was Sadio Mane, so don't get me wrong on that, but Sadio Mane-esque numbers. So there will be a few disappointed by this. And also, I think it is important to say his output was the second best, obviously behind Salah of all the forwards. He is a player that in the stadium, he's made you excited, lit it up at times as well. So there is a little bit of sadness there, but 28 years old, 2 years left, wanted to leave. Looking at the market right now, I don't think 65.5 million is that bad at all. And there are reports that it's a 70 million euro and 5 million euro add-ons, but the 5 million euros are easy, basic to achieve if you want to put it that way. But it was interesting. He was in the photos this morning at the temple that Liverpool were at. And you forget, for this week, Liverpool are playing in a weird time, annoying when you've got the working week. Wednesday, 11:30, I think it is British Standard Time, against Yokohama. So they have got another friendly or pre-season friendly in the near future. But Luis Diaz, apparently, according to these reports, there you go, Fabrizio Romano's tweeted this morning, the plan's confirmed for Diaz. The new Bayern winger will arrive in Munich and he's set to complete his medical on Tuesday. So arrives today, medical Tuesday, and then a 4-year deal with the +1 option. So in a sad way, that is one banger set to disappear. And I've got more, maybe slightly, I think you know what's coming. But anyway, let's give it some happy mood music on a Monday. We all know this is coming. There's a whole Thanos inevitability about this. It's just when it's going to hit. I think Newcastle obviously know it's coming at the same time. Of course they do. This is all just being played out publicly a little bit. We should all remember behind the scenes that Richard Hughes, Eddie Howe's nephew, recruitment there, are all well-known, good friends with each other as well. So what's being reported in the press is behind, obviously, what's happening behind closed doors. And as Fabrizio Romano tweeted late last night, Liverpool are prepared to go big for Alexander Isak after the Luis Diaz sale done. Isak's keen on the move, and he's not even in talks with Saudi club, only Liverpool. It's up to Newcastle now, with Liverpool waiting, but ready to enter with a strong proposal. He knew all this already, Fab, but it's good to, just reinforce it, and it gets people excited, doesn't it? Game is the game, as they say. If we break this down into 3 parts, everyone knows Liverpool are prepared to go big. This is no new story. We were all waiting for this to happen. Of course we are. That second bit about Isak being keen on the move. This has been brilliant for us to hear as fans, hasn't it? As Fabrizio on his channel and others have reiterated. No to Saudi. 600 grand a week was the latest suggestion I think I saw yesterday. So Alexander Isak, an absolute no to that. No to Chelsea. And I never thought I'd be congratulating Sweeney Todd and his people on coming out, and Chelsea, United, others making it clear like, no, we're not in the mix at all. Already turned down Arsenal. Alexander Isak, as it says there from Romano, only Liverpool. He's done his bit as well, to be fair, isn't he? Told Eddie Howe, I'm not playing against Celtic. Told Eddie Howe, despite all the games, they come round to it, I am not going on this tour of Singapore. And we've gone past that minor injury we kind of haven't we? The minor injury nonsense. And as Eddie Howe was asked yesterday, made it up, but there's no chance that he's going to come out to Singapore, and also made it clear the other day, there are no contract talks at all between Isak and Newcastle. Yeah, we know where this is going, don't we? So when is this bid going to semi-break the internet? Probably at some point this week. It will be. And I think the one thing to say about this, as a few have iterated to or alluded to, this is not going to be one of those ones that you'd fancy that Liverpool, put it this way, they're not going to come in with 90 million and that, it just rejected and 3 or 4. Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if the first bid's rejected. Of course it is for public sake. But as we've said on Anfield Index, and many suggested, there is already the strong outline of a deal between the two. Again, it's just what's reported against what's actually happening. And it's right to be excited, because for me, and please don't think this is bad or derogatory when I'm saying this is set to be the second biggest transfer of the summer so far, if it happens, touch wood. I still think Florian Wirtz is the star of the summer, just because of how early that happened. But we should equally be as sort of, obsessed, ecstatic, happy, whatever emotion you want to observe around Alexander Isak. Again, touch wood, if he does end up at Anfield. Couple of key points to call out with this as well. Newcastle have got to get a replacement in, and we know the absolute nightmare they've had this summer trying to bring in. I think, was it 6 or 7 rejections now when you start totting up the Delaps, Kunas, Pedros, and all of those. Trafford now as well. Sesko feels big. It does feel still that, and again, a few journalists are saying there's no guarantee with this. Newcastle need to get a replacement Benjamin Sesko through the door. Visser at Brentford, he's on strike, isn't he? Speaking to their director of football, refusing to go back, which is funny because some Newcastle fan accounts were talking about how it's a disgrace the way Liverpool have tapped up Isak, haven't they, and all that. And I'm sure there'll be Geordies in the mentions now saying all sorts of things. So hello to you as well. Welcome to all. But the game is the game. We all know how this works. You can't be hypocritical about the whole thing. We'll wait to see what happens and when it happens with Alexander Isak this week. Banger number 2 looks like it's going. I think we knew this. Yes, they were crying in Turin, but I can see us crying in the COP 305 the way this is going, because it's just a reiteration. And some people, I think, still had that hope that maybe with all the departures, Chiesa would still stick around. But as Fabrizio Romano tweeted this morning, come on, as we all know, he's not in that 29-man squad to the Far East. He's not travelled. And as Fabrizio tweeted, even after Luis Diaz's sale, Federico Chiesa plan remains to leave Liverpool as he wants to play more, and Serie A is still his favourite destination. Again, it does feel like we're waiting for one of the Italian clubs to make their move, doesn't it? We had the Atalanta rumoured bid of 12 million euros. And again, we mentioned it on the transfer show. Suggestions we've heard from asking around is there's a lot of loan with option offers, which is not really what Liverpool want. So we'll see how any of this unfolds. But that's probably the sad news for Monday morning. Sorry if that has killed the mood a bit, but it is what it is. We can still be happy about everything else that's going on. But I think 2 bangers, the 2, for me, best tunes at Anfield are odds on to depart with one very quickly. Now, in terms of other incomings and a few other bits as well, we'll talk about the revolving door either way. Everton, it's funny this, made the offer for Malik Fofana, didn't they? That was kind of the couple of days ago, Saturday, sort of breaking news that the official bid's been submitted, in talks, trying to do it. However, which is funny because I think we know where this stands, Fofana and his camp are waiting for, you guessed it, a Champions League club to make their move. I think we all know who this is. And you know, if Everton fans are in the mentions, who really cares? But Fofana, with his potential and development, he is far better than Everton. He should be looking higher than that, in all honesty. I do have to be honest, though. I do have a bit of a, well, the phrase is not, concern's not wrong, just a wonder about how it's all going to work, because there's a few reports from different patch journalists. I don't know if anyone noticed this morning that with Diaz departing, Liverpool believe they're well stocked on the left-hand side, that Gakpo pays there automatically. Ekitike can also do there. Wirtz could play from the left as well. Young Rio and Gamoa. So there is 4 options that could play there, which does make you wonder a little bit about Fofana. Now, I do still think the plan is, personally, as we said before on the transfer show, because we can't hide it, Núñez, Chiesa, Diaz to go, 2 coming in, with one of those being Alexander Isak, of course. Fully believe that's the plan. I do actually think that Malik Fofana is one they'd like to bring in. But young Rio's performances and everything we've just said there, it does just make you wonder a little bit. Now, as we mentioned before on the transfer show, they clearly don't want to block the pathway for young Rio and Gamoa. They have got, or Arne Slot's got an interesting call to make now. Does he believe he's ready and how many minutes. People talk about the Chiesa replacement. Well, yeah, I don't know the exact stats, but 500 minutes or less that Chiesa played. So I think, young Rio could do that. Interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on these ones and how they develop. But yeah, fascinating the way it's working. In terms of another player for the exit, Morgan Gibbs-White signed that renewal. Did anyone clock that with Forest on the new big deal? So that's their transfer plans scuppered a bit. Now there's reports that it says there on the screen, Tottenham eye Harvey Elliott as the Gibbs-White deal collapses. Now, according to the reports, there was a £60 million clause there, a release clause for Morgan Gibbs-White that Tottenham were getting ready to trigger. For Harvey, you'd actually think, and I'm saying this carefully, around the 50 million mark will get it done for, say, the youngster, but he is 22. I'm mixed because on the surface, when you say Spurs, that feels like a brilliant attack, the style of football, a good club. But when you now talk about the style of football, is Harvey Elliott a Thomas Frank player? And remembering how many, and this is important to say, physical midfielders or that type that Thomas Frank will normally have in his side. I don't know. But then again, at the end of the day, if we do get 50 million or something like that in the coffers from Tottenham and that progresses, I think we're all happy and it can move to other things. Now, despite talking about Isak, Fofana, wingers, attackers and that, this is the priority for me, and I think for many of us. As we got that bad news that came through on Saturday morning before the AC Milan game, Joe Gomez leaves the tour, heads home to Merseyside due to injury. It's a frustrating setback for the club's longest-serving player. Arne Slot is currently down to 2 senior specialist centre-backs. There's only, VVD and Ibu on the tour right now, isn't there? Which is not good news at all. And I do actually think, in terms of for everything else we need, centre-back is now the immediate priority. We know about the Mark Guehi situation. That seems to be Palace now accepting the need to sell, but it's a price and a negotiation. I honestly think with time ticking, yes, this new season's still a while away, but to integrate a new centre-back as well and give him a bit of time, I do think we need to get at least one. People will say 2. That's a discussion for a different day, through the door as soon as possible. And naturally, we await news on Joe Gomez's injury. I think it's an Achilles was the suggestion. And I've seen different reports, people tweeting nonsense. Our info is that there's nothing confirmed as of yet. Obviously, it could be different when you were listening or watching this show, but as of yet, the extent of that, the severity is unknown. So we wait to see what happens with that one. But what a week, ladies and gents. Centre-backs, forwards, potential wingers of a youth variety coming in. Elliott, Nunes, we're not even mentioning the show, have we? See if anything develops Saudi-wise with him. Diaz set to be confirmed. There's just a million and one things going on with the Reds, as well as we said, like an actual friendly against Yokohama on Wednesday. It feels like it'll be pivotal for things to happen. I'm just not sure we're going to get the conclusions we all fancy, but we will have to see either way. But there we go, ladies and gents. Monday, the 28th of July. That was your news round for Anfield.